I'm Carrie Bourne. I'm from the Office of Continuing Education at UW-Whitewater, and we host this Fairhaven Lecture Series. We've been doing so since 1983. This semester we're talking about our stories, and we have a really great story today from a faculty member and his student researchers, and I'll go ahead and introduce them now. Dr. John Frye came to UW-Whitewater in 2011 and is an associate professor of geography in the Department of Geography, Geology, and Environmental Science, and the director of the Eureka program. Dr. Frye is a broadly trained atmospheric scientist, and his research focuses on all extreme weather events, especially thunderstorms, tornadoes, and extreme precipitation. Sorry, I just said extreme participation. Okay, and then we have Peyton Walz. She's a junior at UW-Whitewater, majoring in journalism and minoring in electronic media. She had the opportunity to join the storm chasing trip as a documentarian, where she captured and produced a compelling documentary. The experience was both creatively inspiring and intellectually enriching, further strengthening her passion for storytelling and visual media. And finally, we have Sabrina Wolf. She came to UW-Whitewater from New Lisbon, Wisconsin. She's an environmental science major with a general business minor. She's graduating in May and will be working for Dodge County as a GIS property analyst. Throughout her time in school, she has done 2 undergraduate research projects and studied abroad in Ireland. Please welcome Dr. Frye, Peyton, and Sabrina.
Just making sure this one is on. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, so I'm Dr. Frye. We're here today to talk about my Geography 492 course, which is a course in severe weather, extreme weather, and part of this course is 2 weeks spent out in the Great Plains chasing storms. This past year, Peyton and Sabrina went with me. They both worked on some research projects, so I'm going to give like this much information to you, and then I'm going to let them talk because I know you guys would love to hear from some students and the great work that they do. So we'll do a quick introduction again as speakers. I'm going to talk about some general course highlights, what the course has been like over the time that I've started it, and then Sabrina's going to get up here, talk about the story map that she created for her project. Peyton's going to get up here and talk about her documentary that she created. So again, I'm Dr. Frye, Associate Professor of Geography. I'm also the Director of Eureka, which is our undergraduate research, innovative, and creative activities program. And Peyton is a junior, journalism major. Sabrina is a senior, environmental science major with a business minor. All right, so the course, I started this course, did this course for the first time in 2013. It had 8 students enrolled in it, myself and then my co-instructor, Alyssa Haas, who was our science outreach coordinator at the time. And we spent that summer out, or 2 weeks in May, out in the Great Plains chasing storms for the first time. It was a great opportunity for me to do this course. I took a course like this when I was a student at Ball State University, really solidified my passion in severe weather, and so I wanted to return that to students. The next year, 2014, 8 more students, plus my son, who was a 7th grader at the time, right there in the Georgia hat. He was doing really well in school, and so we asked the school if we could pull him out for 2 weeks, and they said, yep. And so he joined us. My co-instructor that second year, Alyssa wasn't able to go. Andy Courtney, who went as a student, so there's Andy as a student, there's Andy as my co-instructor that second year. He, again, very similar to me, really found his passion in severe weather on that first year's trip, so I asked him to come back to be my co-instructor. 2015, another 8 students. Andy was off working professionally, so I had Dr. Nathan Hitchens, who I went to graduate school with at Ball State, and so he came in and joined me that year. 2017, a big group. We had 11 students that year. Dr. Hitchens from Ball State went with me again, and I had 2 TAs that went on the previous trip, Megan Matthews and Chloe Reberg. Those are not their names now. They've been married since, but I left their names as they did on the trip. And so we went. 2020, we were planning, we were going through the coursework, and COVID hit. So the only thing that went on the trip that year was COVID. We all stayed home like everybody else. 2022, we restarted the trip. Prior to this year, this trip was ran through our department. In 2022 is when we transitioned over to running through Carrie's other job besides running these lecture series that she does, continuing education classes and stuff. And so we started running through that program. 9 students that year. Andy rejoined me and myself. The other thing is right here, there's my son again, now as a college student taking the course. He was going to Stout, but he wanted to go again, so I'm like, sign up for the course. You can go. And so he went. Did he get an A? He did get an A. Andy graded him, though. I did not grade him. The other thing about 2022, just that I find unique, both personally and as an instructor, it was the first time a romance butted on the trip. My son and Bridget, there in the black sweatshirt, are a couple and getting ready to celebrate their 4th year together. Yes, there are talks of potential wedding and stuff coming, so I'm excited as a dad, but it's kind of cool to see that kind of blossom in a trip like this as well, as a side note. 2023, myself, Andy again, 9 students, including Sabrina for the first time, right there, which you'll get to hear from her in a little bit. 2025, 9 students again. There's Sabrina one more time. Also, my daughter joined me as a freshly graduated high school senior. Literally, she graduated Friday night. We left Saturday morning, and she took the course officially as a college student then. And Andy joined me again. Obviously, 2026, we're still building our course list, so we'll see what that comes to fruition here. Over the years, so I've done the trip, I've done the course 9 times, obviously traveled 8 of those, or getting ready to travel 8 of those, and this year, we average about 4,500 miles a year. In total, I have figured out that I've driven over 40,000 miles on storm chase trips between the ones I've led, the ones I've taken as a student, and the highlighted states are all the states that we've hit in the time that I've been leading the course here at UW-Whitewater. Obviously, we don't get to every single one of those every single year, but we have been in those states at least once in the trips that we've done chasing storms. So that kind of gives you, again, a very broad overview of the course. Talking a little bit about that. And I know Sabrina and Peyton are going to be talking about this. I'm teaching them how to forecast. They're doing forecasting themselves. They're leading forecast briefings, so they build a lot of communication skills, planning skills as far as, this is where we think the storms are going to be. This is where we are. How are we going to get there? How long is it going to take us to do that? So there's a lot of logistics in the trip, along with, what we do from a day-to-day, but I put the trip in kind of their hands, and me and Andy here lately have been the ones, we're there as guides to lead them through that process, answer questions that they have, but we let the students kind of dictate the day-to-day operations of the trip and where we go. So that's enough from me. I want you guys to hear from these guys. So I'm going to first have Sabrina come up. Again, Sabrina is a senior getting ready to graduate, environmental science student. She'll talk a little bit about her time on both trips, focusing on this past year and then the project that she did. So, Sabrina.
Thank you for the introduction. Can everyone hear me all right? Okay, if you can't, just yell at me. I'll speak up a little bit. So, as he said before, this was my 2nd time going on the storm chasing trip. The first was after my freshman year of college, so the summer of 2023. And that's what influenced me to switch my major from business to environmental science. I went on this trip, fell in love. I said, this is what I want to do. Why not? College is a time for experimenting, and I really did experiment. It was a lot of fun. So I wanted to go a second time, and it really allowed me to be a student leader and kind of step up and show the other students how to forecast, what all went into a chase day, and got to cultivate the same passion that I formed with storm chasing in the other students, which was a very cool experience. And I also want to conduct undergraduate research and learn more for myself about what produced severe hazards. So we experienced on this trip many of hazards. I'll talk about more later, but we saw tornadoes, hail, lightning, straight-line winds, flash flooding, all of the things. And I was very interested on what caused them and how it would look. So I created a StoryMap. A StoryMap is basically a software that you can use to create a website to include pictures, videos, maps, anything in between. It's very cool. And with this, I wanted to inform others why storm chasing is important, but also highlight the very unique aspects of our trip. So we traveled over 5,950 miles this year. That's kind of the purple route is where we all went. And everything highlighted in blue and red are the 2 days we saw tornadoes. And so they're in the same little region of Texas. We spent a lot of time in the orange dust area. So it was very exciting, very, very orange, but very cool. And I kind of want to explain to you guys why storm chasing is important. Yes, it's cool to see, but also people need to do it safely. And storm chasers help out by spotting and confirming severe weather events, and then they warn local National Weather Service stations so they can get out proper warnings to the citizens that are in the cities and areas nearby. So I'm just going to lay out a little bit about what each day looks like while we're storm chasing, and then I'll get you guys some pictures. So in the background of this one is me. Yay. And then in the red circle is a tornado. So this is the beginning of a tornado, and this one turns into like a mile wide. So that one is pretty cool. But this is the little start of the tornado here. So how do we get to see these amazing things? Well, it starts with a forecast. You gotta sit down, you gotta look at the radar, look at the models, look at the different atmospheric conditions, and try to figure out where to go. That's a lot where Dr. Frye and Andy kind of helped us out, guiding us along, trying to make us ask the right questions to figure things out for ourselves. And once you pinpoint that target area where you're going to go, you kind of look at, okay, is there food along the way? Are there bathroom stops that we can sit at? Is there a park we can wait in until the storm starts happening? And we also want to make sure that we're staying far enough away that we're safe, but also close enough where we can see everything develop. And a very important aspect to remember is road networks. In Texas, sometimes they just decide not to build roads for 30 miles. So it's very important that you kind of look at where you're going, if there's enough roads to get there, if they're paved, so you don't get stuck in the dirt. Foreshadowing, just listen to that. And then once you're on the chase, you obviously want to stay away from danger, stay up to date on everything, and make sure you have data and service so you can see everything. And then you also have to remember where you are at the end of the night, when to kind of stop chasing so you get to a hotel before midnight and crash for the next day. All right, well, on with it. We're going to look at a cool little story map now, if I can figure out technology. Okay, so this is what a story map looks like, and basically I'm just going to keep scrolling until we get to the fun parts. So I already kind of went over what storm chasing is and how we forecast each day. So our first chase day started on May 24th. This is the lovely group of students that went. And we wanted to head as far south as possible that day. So we just got in the car and we drove for 12 hours. Not the best part of storm chasing, but a needed part. And then our first chase happened, and we were in the northern part of Texas. And we saw some pretty cool clouds right away. And on this day, I'd like to point out the top. Oh, there is a laser. This picture right here, there's a whole bunch of cars. That's something we call chaser convergence. It's when a whole bunch of chasers want to see this really cool storm. But that also means there's about 75 people in cars trying to get out and see things in the road. Some people are not very smart when they open car doors. So it just produces extra hazard for the people in the area. And just something that we ran into on our first chase day. And then this is where the bad things happened. We lost our service, and so we had no idea what the radar looked like, and we were chasing a storm with really big hail. And so we didn't know what the roads looked like. They weren't great in the area, weren't sure where the storm was moving, so we just kind of parked off on the side of the road trying to wait out the storm. And it's very dry in Texas, orange dirt, as I mentioned, and so it just kind of flooded. As you can see here, this was like a little irrigation ditch that turned into a little river. And so we got stuck in the mud, and a kind stranger pulled us out, thankfully. But good thing that we did stay where we were, because just 5 miles west was dropping 5-inch hail. So that's compared next to a baseball cap. That's about the size of a head. So I'm very happy we got stuck in the mud. I'd rather be in mud than with a broken windshield. But just one of the hazards that is possible on storm chasing, and it's something that we prepared a lot about, but still, unfortunate things happen. Later that night on the way to the hotel, there was some good lightning, and so many photos were taken. The next chase day, again, we were in Texas, this time in the middle, and this storm also had large hail, so we were trying to avoid that most of the day. Just some more forecasting information here, and this is called a dust devil. So I'm going to zoom in here, and it's basically just some dirt that got spun up on the ground, and it creates this fun little guy. So it's not a tornado. It's just some spinning air that forms, and it was really cool to see. And again, there's nothing going on in Texas right here, so kind of fun. This storm developed quite beautifully. This is a drone video. And so we took a drone on our trip to kind of get some high up views of the storm. And as you can see, there are a lot of clouds just being sucked up into this massive supercell. And it was really cool to be able to see that happen in real time. Again, we were just looking at this beautiful storm structure, watching it form, watching it move. Here's Andy and Frye explaining what's going on in the atmosphere behind us. And we just got to sit here for about 30 minutes and just enjoy this beautiful Mother Nature has for us. Some more storm photos, moving on a little bit. This storm was very cool because there was some mountains right in the background. And so what really influenced this storm to happen was some orographic lifting, is when clouds hit the mountains and go up. And so beautiful landscape once again. We were on the same storm as the National Weather Service was. So this is their truck and their setup for storm chasing. We just had minivans. We're not that fancy. However, it was very cool to see. Someone said to me this day while we were chasing, they're like, "Oh, we're almost as good as the National Weather Service." And I was like, "We are that good. Don't even worry. We were on the same storm." So that was a fun experience to see. And then because we love pretty things, we saw a double rainbow that night, and we made Dr. Frye pull over so we could take pictures of it. It was a wonderful time. The wind was very fast at this point, so I don't have any pictures of people because the hair was absolutely everywhere. But a beautiful double rainbow. Some more forecasting information, and something that is definitely interesting with storm chasing is there's not going to be a storm every day. That's not realistic. So some days there just isn't much happening. Today, there was not much happening, so we sat in a park. But it doesn't have to be boring. We were playing spoons. I don't know if you guys ever played this game, but it gets intense. There were some tears shed, maybe some blood, I don't know. Very fun times. We played some basketball, and it was just nice to, you get to be with your friends, you get to hang out in a park. It's a great time. You can see the smiles here. Later that night, we got to our hotel early, got to go to bed, do some laundry, all important things. And we also had like a little lecture night. So it is a class that we're trying to learn things on. And so Frye will teach us more about some of the nitty-gritty stuff of forecasting and explain some of the larger concepts. And it's just a good way to continue learning without being in a pressure of having to chase that day. All right, now this is the really cool day. On May 29th, we saw 13 different land-spout tornadoes. I know. It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. So a land-spout tornado is a little bit different. So what happens is the air starts on the ground and it kind of spins like this. And then as the storm is building, it kind of scoops up this air and connects it to the clouds. So the clouds and the ground are both spinning, and that's kind of how a land-spout tornado forms, whereas a traditional tornado kind of forms from the clouds and drops down as a wedge. So it's a little bit different. They're a little more short-lived, but they're very pretty to see. So before we got to see all those landspouts, we had to wait in a park, and we had some prairie dog friends. So they were not very happy to share their space with us. But then we got to see some landspouts. So this is a time lapse if it loads. might be a little glitchy, but we saw 2 landspot tornadoes standing right here. So if we look right here, there's a little orange spin up. We'll wait for it to play back again, and it kind of spins up right here. The rotation connects to the clouds right there, and it kind of moves in towards the storm. It's hard to see because it's a time lapse, so it lasted longer in real life. And then it's very hard to see with the exposure on this video, but there's another land spot that kind of dropped down right in the center there, which was really cool. All right, oh, here's the paused video. This is a little land spout guy, and this is what it looks like on radar. So, moving along, after we saw all those land spouts pop up, we got caught in the outflow of the storm, and it was just dust city. I think I dumped shoes out, and it was just like a little pile in my hotel room of dust. But as you can see, there's some headlights off in the distance. Very, very windy, very, very dusty. But again, this is part of like the hazards that we were trying to find. Again, not every day is going to have storms. So May 30th, there was absolutely nothing. So we went hiking instead. We went to the Palo Duro Canyon. It was very warm, but very beautiful. This is our little group that went on the hike. Yeah. May 31st, here is our forecast briefing. Again, there wasn't much happening this day either, so we went to Greensburg, Kansas. Something very special about this town is it has the world's largest hand-dug well. It taps into the Ogallala Aquifer, and it kind of measures how much that aquifer is being depleted over time, because it used to be 20 feet of water, and now it's just like 8 feet of water at the bottom. So it kind of shows how far the water table's gone down there. But you can kind of see us in the well. It is absolutely massive. Oh gosh, I wonder if I have it written here. He asked how deep the well was. I genuinely do not know, but it's big. Yeah. And what also happened in Greensburg was in 2007, an EF5 tornado came through and destroyed the entire town. And so something that was very unique about this was that they had an emergency alert that saved over 200 lives. So they only lost 12, which is still very large, but many lives were able to be saved. And so obviously a huge devastation that hit the town, wiped out everything, as you can kind of see in this middle image here, but they were able to rebuild, and they now have very sustainable buildings in place. So kind of a story of like how bad tornadoes can be, but the community rallied together to come back. So even if we're not chasing, we're still learning things, we're still experiencing things. For me, I would never get to Texas without this trip, so it was a good experience for me to see the landscapes and also learn about places like Greensburg and talk to people firsthand. Just some storms in the sky, nothing too crazy, but pretty pictures nonetheless. June 1st again, fun fact, this was my birthday. Peyton's birthday was also on this trip, so we had some great times. There were no storms this day, so we just walked around Boot Hill, learned about the history of the area, and went to a water park. So, yeah, fun little time. June 2nd, let's see how we're doing. All right, I've got a little bit longer. So, on this day, we were in the middle of nowhere with some cattle, and the sky is like almost tealish in this picture. That's not editing, that's how the sky looked. And when this happens, it's kind of an indicator of hail in the storms. I do believe this storm dropped 3-inch hail later that day. So again, just a little indicator of something you can see firsthand, and something you can call into the National Weather Service being like, hey, there's hail. Something that also happened was this very cool formation of clouds here. This is called a shelf cloud. It usually indicates strong winds and heavy rain is approaching, and standing there, you can kind of feel the cold wind hit you as you're watching these clouds move. And again, it's just beautiful to look at. One of my favorite parts of every trip is we try to watch a lightning storm every year. Sometimes it's just every second. There just seems to be a lightning strike, and it's something that it gives you goosebumps to look at. So again, these are just some of my favorites that I was able to take a picture of. Absolutely, absolutely beautiful. This is another day of storm chasing. One of my favorite parts is when we get out, we get to like obviously go off on these little side roads, and Dr. Frye would always be like, watch out for rattlesnakes, and I'd be terrified every time you step out of the car because you don't want to get bit by one. So it was always fun to get out and watch these things, but at the same time you're a little nervous every time. So more forecasting information. The farther we got into the trip, the better we all got at forecasting. It was very interesting to see. So at the beginning, everyone would be like, well, this kind of does this, and then we might see this. And by the end, we were spouting off like meteorological terminology and things like that. And so it was cool to see the development of other students along the trip as well. So this day we were able to go on top of a mesa in Texas and see this beautiful supercell kind of roll over the plain. It kind of looks like an alien spaceship to me, so that's always exciting. And it also dropped a lot of hail in a nearby town. So we rolled up after the storm went through, and the ground just looked like it had snowed outside. And it was all just little hail chunks. So the insurance is going to have fun in that town. But it was cool to see aftermath. All right, and I will leave June 5th for Peyton to talk about. So she's going to show what she worked on in her documentary. So we'll pass it along. Do you want the...
Oh yeah, how do I get back to there? All right, hi everybody. My name is Peyton, and I am not a science major, okay? I am a journalism major. This was all brand new to me. I've never done something like this. So when my professor came up to me and said, let's make a documentary about storm chasing, I said, all right, why not? And I had no idea what I was in for. So I'm going to run you through a little bit about my experience storm chasing, and then I'm going to show you a video of a portion of the documentary I made. And in that day, we saw a big tornado. So we'll get to that. This documentary, I wanted to highlight the class on forecasting and extreme weather. And then the documentary I produced explores how learning in active storm environments helps future meteorologists, future students that want to work in this field. Not me, other people, okay? But it definitely helped my storytelling capabilities for sure. So some details about the documentary. It captures students as they apply real-world classroom knowledge to the real world. So I told this story through interviews and field footage, which we'll get to see here in a little bit. And I also wanted to capture life beyond the storm. I wanted to show people what our personalities were like, what life on the road was like. We're staying in hotels every night. It's something different every day. So I wanted to show to your average person, me, explaining those complex meteorology terms into simple, easy to understand ideas, and also show the personalities of the people that went on this trip. And so for making a documentary, you obviously have to use a lot of equipment, and it was especially important that I know my equipment really well and I'm able to utilize that to make the best documentary possible. So here's a list of all the things I used. I used a Canon XA40 camera, which is very similar to the ones there in the back of the room. I used a lavalier microphone, which is one that just clips right on your shirt. I didn't want to use a handheld because I thought that it would get in the way of that storytelling a little bit. Tripod, headphones. We had a GoPro 360 mounted on top of the car so we could see kind of the outside footage of the storm. We had 2 additional GoPros inside of the vans so you can see Andy and Frye talking back and forth on their walkie-talkies. And then we used a drone, like Sabrina was saying. And then I had to make sure on my end that my camera batteries were fully charged and my SD cards still had storage on them, because I took lots and lots and lots of videos. And it was important for me to have knowledge about my equipment, and in post-production I used APM Music and Adobe Premiere Pro. And this project for me was like 90% post-production, so I spent many months editing this. My storm chasing documentary is called Beyond the Dry Line. Dry line is one of those meteorology terms. And for this documentary to be successful, I had to do research, my field work, filming, and lots of post-production, like I was just saying. And through this, I refined my analytical thinking, strengthened my abilities to translate complicated science terms into something, like I was saying, that the easy, average person can understand. And it represents not only everyone's storm chasing capabilities, but also it strengthened my own academic confidence and creative capabilities. So it was a big, big challenge for me, but I'm so happy and grateful that it turned out so good. A little bit of my testimony. So from a very young age, I was terrified of storms. I never wanted to go out and chase tornadoes. Every time I would hear the wind, I would call my mom and start crying because I was scared that a tornado was going to rip through the town. So this was a very big opportunity for me to overcome my fears of storms, like I'm sure many of us have. And I'm not someone who is very mathematically and science focused in life. So I'm very much a communication, English, writing type of person. So I also got to experience what it was like to take a class in science. And it was just a big, big puzzle for me to put together. I wanted to highlight the educational value of storm chasers that they have. Storm chasers aren't just like Twister, if anyone has seen that movie, and they're just running around in their cars getting sucked up by tornadoes. These storm chasers are scientists. It's a lot of this analytical thinking, looking at all these different graphs. So I really wanted to highlight how much thinking and work and preparation goes into this sort of thing. I wanted to illustrate ethics and also my personal growth and lots of other students' personal growth throughout the trip. And here is day 13. I'm going to show you in a little bit, but my conclusion is media can serve as a bridge between academic research and public understanding of weather. So it is my honor to be able to show all of you what storm chasing actively looks like. Ultimately, the storm chasing documentary aims to inspire future students to engage with environmental sciences and to promote awareness of the power of storms. These storms are very powerful, but also the beauty of severe weather, while underscoring the importance of safety, ethics, and preparation in the field. All right, without further ado, hold on.
Cooler temperatures down into even Lubbock area. South of Lubbock, you're already seeing some mid-70s starting to pop up. Our LCL is really low, less than a kilometer in height. Lower your LCL, and remember that's where the cloud starts. Lower your LCL. It's easier to produce a tornado because, remember, you have to go cloud to ground. So start here with the surface dew point temperatures. So you got a nice flow of moisture out of the Gulf where that boundary is right now. You can see a little plume of moisture sitting out here. So this is what we're keeping our eye on. Nice, again, finger of Cape right here, spiking kind of right along the Texas, New Mexico line. But then we're probably going to drift down to the southwest, closer to that boundary is kind of sitting right here through Plains, Brownfield, out to Post, kind of this region right in here. So it's an hour and a half, just over an hour and a half down to Lubbock.
We do not celebrate tornadoes. Okay? This, ironically, being our last day, it's the best conditions we've had. Okay? Tornadoes destroy people's lives, right? Okay, so we have to keep that in mind throughout the day that, you know, this could be tearing somebody's lives apart, many people's lives apart. Last day of chasing is always bittersweet. I mean, been out here kind of chasing storms and having a lot of fun, and we know this is the last day and then we have to make the long journey home. So it's just a bittersweet moment. This year is probably the best conditions I've seen on our last day of chasing, so that brings up some excitement, of course, in us as, you know, me as a professor, but the whole group seems pretty pumped up and excited today. When I'm chasing, safety is my number one rule, so we're going to get as close as we can without putting ourselves in danger. And that comes from a little bit of experience knowing kind of tornadic behavior and stuff like that. The other thing I'll say is, you know, we're in a part of Texas, and the main threat here in Texas is in a pretty populated area. Lubbock, Texas, one of the larger towns in western Texas, is kind of bullseye right in the center of where the highest threat's going to be. And then there's a lot of sprawl, urban sprawl outside of Lubbock, so you're getting into some pretty populated areas. That concerns me a lot. You know, I like doing this, like chasing storms. There's, you know, always that excitement to see a tornado, but the last thing I want to see is a tornado ripping through a town.
Not everyone got to meet a lot of people, Andy. Some of us just met the mayor.
Tornadoes ruin people's lives, they destroy towns, they destroy everything people have, so it's important to keep that in mind. But we're excited for a good chase. Things are building, so we're going to jump on the storm as soon as possible. The feelings right now are very mixed. We're all kind of on our toes. We know there's something big happening today, but we don't really know what it's going to be yet.
Pretty good handle over there. That could be the backside of this storm.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we're gonna have to timestamp this video because I literally just said that.
You have to know a lot about a lot, it feels like. You have to know the terrain of places. You have to remember that there's time change in some areas. So just being aware of where you plan on going was probably the biggest takeaway, honestly. I think Storm Chaser Convergence today is going to be horrible, being honest. I think it's going to look like a concert. We're all going to be out there kumbaya-ing with our phones. I mean, if you see the gas station right now, all of these vans, I'm telling you right now, are chasers. We've got our friends piling up over here, but I think there's going to be an excessive amount. I love doing this, and I know as soon as I get home, I'm going to be longing for being back out here again. My stomach has been in knots since I woke up this morning and I looked at the forecast. No percent is enough to chase and still get a tornado. It's 10%, it gets you up there, and then as soon as you get hatched, that's where you get your possibility for EF2 and higher, especially since tornado ratings are based off of the damage that is done to people, and this being a very densely populated area, a ranking could get bumped up because it does more damage, and that could become technically a PDS or potentially dangerous situation. And that's kind of my fear today because we've got people's lives at risk. I'm excited. I mean, 10% probability is great news for us, but we're not on the fields anymore. So it's a little eerie, and I mean, we'll see how the day plays out. And to be able to come out and even have the possibility of seeing something like this, I'm excited, but also scared, and also a million other emotions.
Yeah, copy that. Just so we can keep seeing.
It's almost bittersweet. I'm very excited to see the storm today, but it's also that pit in your stomach. I'm a little bit concerned about where the storm track is going to go, and also what it's going to cause damage-wise. Based on the conditions that we saw this morning, everything that goes into making the storm, all the ingredients are in this one little blip. And having all those ingredients and having the high levels of shear, so different wind directions and different speeds, so close to the Earth's surface, is really what's going to drive the storm that we're going to see today. And with all of these ingredients right there, it's going to turn into this giant supercell. my fear is for the people that are nearby, and it's in a very populated area. And so I just hope no one gets hurt today.
Keep it go. We got the Dow coming, slowing down traffic. Roll if you can. Thank you. Just trying to give a heads up.
If we go southeast, do we have anything to get back?
Got a new PDS tornado warning, it looks like, on this thing. I think this new warning is a PDS if it's flashing. So PDS is a particularly dangerous situation. We just saw a giant wedge. It's flashing on radar scope, so it says it is observed considerable damage, threat with 3-inch hail. I don't know if the 3-inch hail is confirmed yet. We'll look.
Okay. I think I went ahead east on 1780. I think it's, obviously it makes a turn. We have a sound option if we need to.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking from back here as well.
Because even though that storm track is pointing southeast, the storm itself is still moving almost due east or slightly north of east.
Yeah, and it looks like it just tightened up, obviously, and is, again, more east. Well,
So I take.
It's definitely, an emotional day for sure. I really like living on the road and just whatever it brings. And that's one of the beauties of this trip is you really don't know where it's going to take you until you're out there. And it's really a day-by-day type of situation. So I really enjoy that and kind of the adventure of it. I also have that, feeling in my stomach ever since this morning. And to be honest, this is probably one of the most significant days I've ever chased.
All right, and that's my documentary. That's one day of all the days we went out there. So I did per day. So that was our last day. It was very exciting, and I am honestly so honored that I was able to have the unique opportunity to be a documentarian and take my classroom knowledge of video and storytelling and put it into a real world scenario and get to go storm chasing. So it really just was the experience of a lifetime for me and Sabrina and everybody else who got the chance to go out there and chase these tornadoes.
So that is a little bit about the trip. We will take some questions if you guys have them, and we can talk. I will say, again, this is just one day of Peyton's documentary, and I got to tell a story about Peyton, because again, she came in this as a non-scientist. So the first time we met, I was like, do you want to do this? Like, you're going to learn, I'm going to make you take the course, and you're going to learn the science too. And she's like, yeah, I'm not really a science person, but I'm going to do it. And I said, well, we're out there for 2 weeks. You're going to be shooting video. She's like, oh, I'll be able to create a 20-minute documentary. No problem. I can do that. We get back from the trip, and like a month later, Peyton says, I ran through my first edits. I said, oh, great. That sounds great. I can't wait to see what you got. It's like 3.5 hours long. And I'm like, no, we can't make it that long. So she went from thinking she was going to do a nice short 20-minute documentary to having 3.5 hours, but she got that trimmed down to about an hour and a half. So, and the second thing I'll share, just because it was cool to see, I've had the privilege of watching the full documentary. This one right here. First time she did a forecast briefing, she actually put her video up in the documentary, and you can tell how hesitant she is. And then the day before June 5th, so you didn't get to see here, she did another forecast briefing. She asked me if she could do an extra one because she wanted to do it again. And she was on top of it. And so you can see, she talked about her personal growth. You saw her personal growth. And Sabrina's done the same thing. So this first year Sabrina went, again, it took her a while to catch on. She caught on to forecasting. And then on this trip, she came to Andy and I, because usually we have them do the forecast briefing in the morning. We decide where we're going to go, and we start to go that way. Throughout the day, me and Andy are updating ourselves, making sure we're still on track. Do we need to adjust? Sabrina came up to us, and she's like, how do you make those decisions? Some days we pick this city, and we go to that city. Some days you change where we're going to go, and I want to know. And so we had her start joining us when we were having those conversations. And then one day I said, all right, you're doing the midday briefing. And she took it over, and she led it. And so just the growth that both of these ladies have experienced in the trips that they've taken is just, it really shows how impactful trips like this can be. So I'm going to stop talking and ask questions, and ask them questions too.